Okay, we are still in Tier 4 as we
sir.
kick off wide receivers 31 through 40 here. Now in Tier 4, started at 24. So 31, Amari Cooper. 32, Keenan Allen. Now we break to Tier 5 at 33, which is kicked off by George Pickens, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Xavier Worthy, Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rome Odunze.
Boy, but just look how good Tier 5 is. Just again, you want to talk about the depth of the position here. I mean, Deontay Johnson is just, we've talked about him a lot, but he is going way too low in drafts. He's just going to get a massive target share in Carolina. Chris Godwin, they're moving back to the slot this year. You like this. We already talked about Worthy. We'll talk about Jaden Reed here in a second, but like Ridley and Hopkins, again, Tennessee's going to push the ball down the field under Brian Callahan as well. It's just, there's a lot of really interesting guys there for me. So you want to talk about Keenan? You want to talk about Jaden Reed, Connor? Where are we going?
Let's go with Keenan Allen because everybody's talking about really, it feels like two things with Keenan Allen. One, his age, and then also the apparent, weight he's gained, whether on purpose or not. So just where is the feel around Keenan Allen right now in a very busy offense out of nowhere?
Yeah, look, I'm at, obviously I have him down here in Tier 4. Like, to your point, turned 32 in April. He's missed 11 games over the last 2 seasons, and under Shane Waldron last year, who's the new offense coordinator of the Bears, but he was with Seattle last year, the Seahawks were 29th in slot targets last year. Now, all due respect to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who we like, but he was hurt some last year, and rookie Jackson Smith and Jigba is not Keenan Allen, who, by the way, has had at least a 25% target share 8 of the last 9 seasons. He's averaged 6 receptions per game for 9 consecutive years. He was the 3rd best wide receiver in fantasy on a points per game basis last year. He was wide receiver 8. He's Keenan freaking Allen. And so I think, especially, by the way, if you're Caleb Williams, you're looking for DJ Moore, you're looking for Keenan Allen. I prefer Moore to Allen, but I do think Allen is kind of undervalued because, again, older player, not sexy. There are some injury concerns here, but where you have to take him, he doesn't have to be a starter for you. You're not going to the season unless you go crazy running back, quarterback, tight end early. Generally speaking, you're not going to the season with Keenan Allen as your starting wide receiver. So even if he's going to miss some time, the fact of the matter is that when he's out there, I think he's going to be very good because I think Caleb Williams is going to be good. I think this Bears offense is going to be good, and I think that it's really going to be DJ Moore and Keenan Allen.
Jay, let me ask you something. With how great this Bears defense looked the second half of last year, and they went out and paid a running back a lot of money, do you have any concern about any of the pass game? Not that it's going to be inefficient, but fantasy, you need volume and numbers, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. We don't know how often they're going to truly throw.
Yeah, and we just haven't seen this quarterback in the NFL before. We haven't seen this offensive coordinator with this quarterback. There's a lot of uncertainty here, and I think that, going in the 30s, that's fine for Keenan Allen, but also, right now on Yahoo, he's going ahead of Christian Kirk and Rashee Rice. Give me both of those guys over Keenan Allen.
I agree with that.
And also, I think Keenan Allen is maybe the one player in the NFL whose stats last year were just most warped by his context. Because you just look at it, it's Keenan Allen had over 1,200 yards in 13 games. It's watch the game, watch what the Chargers were doing. There was no one else. He was just getting every target. Second on the Chargers in targets last year was Austin Eckler. Third was Gerald Everett. There was nothing else. And yeah, credit to Keenan Allen, he was able to make something of those targets, but he's not going to be, he had 150 targets in 13 games last year. And obviously, we're baking in that is going to get reduced. It's not going to be the same deal, but just a little bit of uncertainty. So I wouldn't go in expecting Keenan Allen is definitely going to have, this 1,000+ yard season. But just with his receptions, he should be able to provide a decent floor if he stays healthy.
I will say this too. I also think depending on how you're constructing your wide receiver room, sort of depends on what you want to do with Keenan Allen. Because I hear you, Rashee Rice. There's also some younger, quote, more upside guys that are going around in the same range. And so I sort of feel like if I've gone sort of running back heavy and I've taken a flyer, or if I feel less certain about my wide receiver room, then you might be you know what? Because I think Keenan Allen's probably more of a floor play than an upside play at this point for this coming into this year. But I feel like if I feel really rock solid about my wide receivers, I'm just let me just take a flyer or something like that. Then to your point, maybe there's other wide receivers with quote unquote more upside that you might want to take in this range. So I think it's also sort of how, as you're building your wide receiver room and you're constructing your roster, it's a little bit about seeing where if and where Keenan Allen fits in. You feel better about him in PPR than half PPR as well. But I do think just again, I said this about DeAndre Hopkins too. He's not a sexy player, but all this guy has done when he's been healthy has produced.
Down the list at 38, Jayden Reed. Everybody's trying to figure out what Packers wide receiver do I want. And it was an interesting moment with Jordan Love this summer with Bleacher Report. He was asked to draw his unstoppable play. Let's take a listen on which wide receivers he included.
X, we're going to put we're going to put Romeo Doubs out there. Just because, I mean, that's one of my favorite fade targets. Whenever I throw it up to him, he is going to come down with the ball. I know that 100%. So this is my play. I mean, we can run it backed up, middle of the field, red zone. I mean, I think there's touchdowns all over the place. Devontae Adams choice route, Romeo Doubs on a little fade, Travis Kelce on a through route across the middle, Tyreek Hill on a little slot fade, Josh Jacobs on a hitch out there. So that's my play right there. Unstoppable.
So a ton of fantasy superstars, and then Romeo Doubs.
Yes.
No slight against Romeo Doubs. It's just interesting when we talk about their 4 wide receivers all the time that he included Romeo Doubs, who's had some massive moments with Jordan Love.
But you know what? Listen, watching that clip, it makes me feel like he just feels really good about Romeo Doubs running that one route.
Yeah.
I don't think that was
Which he did in college all the time.
Right, exactly.
It
didn't feel like that was him saying, like, listen, I don't like Jayden Reed, Christian Watson, or Dontavian
like
Wicks.
when Stroud put Tank Dell in his offense, we did that clip. Remember?
Yes.
Like,
when Stroud did that, he was just like, these are 3 of the best guys.
Right.
Exactly. That way, just listening to that clip, Jordan Love was talking about, like, listen, here's my perfect play. I want a tight end to run over the middle. All right, give me Travis Kelce. Like, he figured out what play he wanted, then he figured out which guys could do what routes within that play to make his, quote, perfect play. And, he talked about Tirico Hill as well. And so, I don't know. I don't take a lot into that clip. I will say that I love getting the Packers wide receivers in a best ball format. I will say that I think every week, I think Jordan Love's going to have a monster year, especially if you look at their schedule, their early schedule. Like, it's great. The Packers' early schedule is fantastic. And so I think Jordan Love's going to have a hot start, and I think you're going to have at least 1, if not 2, wide receivers every week have big games for the Packers offense. I think it's going to be tough to predict which one is on any given week. If I had to pick, I have some Doubs as well. I have almost no Christian Watson just because of the injuries and that's a concern here as well. But I feel like as we watch that offense sort of grow up last year, feels like Jayden Reed and Dontavian Wicks are 2 guys that really sort of came more into their own. Doubs and Watson were what they were, and they were good and they were fine and everything like that, but felt like we saw growth from Reed and Wicks. I don't know if you saw the same thing.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from Jayden Reed as a rookie. I think he gets manufactured touches. I think he's a quietly very good route runner, especially when they use him in the slot. I'd be very high on Jayden Reed this year. When people ask me this question, that's who I say there's actually a pretty good gap for me. I think he's going to have an elevated role this year.
He finished as wide receiver 25
Right.
last year, which I think goes a bit under the radar. I think the Packers' situation overall might be the most interesting in the league in terms of pass catches because last year they finished as the number 5 offense in football, and they didn't really seem to know what they were doing the first half of the season.
Yeah.
They still finished as a top 5 offense. It's like one of the youngest offenses that we've ever seen at skill position and quarterback combined, so I think that they should get better. And I think there's a little bit of a logical inconsistency where last year Romeo Doubs led the Packers in targets. He had almost 100 targets. He led the team, and he's going 62nd among wide receivers on Yahoo. Like, it's a top 5 offense, and he's led them in targets. Like, can't go see. He just turned 24 years old as well. So I think that, I don't think that he's going to be their top receiver. I think that will be Jayden Reed, and I think Wicks has more upside. Watson has more upside, even if Watson's median outcome might be 4th among these guys because of the injury concerns. But Doubs is worth, I think, a late-round flyer, certainly.
Slight concern on Jayden Reed in terms of touchdown regression. He had 10 touchdowns last year on just 75 touches, but an increased role. And again, you sort of feel like his role is the most secure. Like, you'll see Watson and Doubs on the outside. Wicks will work his way in as the 4th wide receiver, but Reed's going to be in the slot. Like, Reed is their slot guy, and that's an area of the field that Jordan Love is very comfortable throwing. So, Jayden Reed, to me, if I'm throwing a dart at which Packers wide receiver, I kind of like Reed, and I like Wicks because he's the cheapest of the 4 as well. But I hear you on Doubs as well. Like, there's value in all these guys. I think just the consistency is going to be tough to figure out.
Speaking of Wicks, let's look at some late-round deep league targets, a list that he is included on. Jamison Williams, Josh Palmer, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir, Darnell Mooney, Jalen McMillan, Greg Dortch, Andre Yosevich, and Luke McCaffrey. Jay, who on this list stands out to you?
So the guy for me is Josh Palmer, who some places going outside the top 45 wide receivers. Like, the reality is, again, just very simply, he looks like he's going to be Justin Herbert's #1 wide receiver.
Yes.
And I understand that this offense probably isn't going to throw that much. It's not going to be an explosive passing game. Someone has to catch the ball.
Yes.
Justin Herbert is a top 7 quarterback in the NFL on talent. Like, he's going to throw the ball.
Correct.
And Josh Palmer would be the favorite in the market to be the Chargers' #1 wide receiver, and thus I think he is certainly worth a flyer.
Jay, I'm kind of using the same thought process when I see Khalil Shakir on that list. I understand Dalton Kincaid is a target monster in that offense, but I think people are investing a little too much early hope in Keon Coleman as a rookie. Curtis Samuel's dealing with a turf toe. They think he should be ready for week 1. They're not definitively saying it. Khalil Shakir is going to fall into a lot of catches in this offense with an elite quarterback.
For sure. My only concern is Curtis Samuel, who they brought in, who has a familiarity with Joe Brady as well. And so do they kind of cancel each other out? But I think both Shakir's on this list for me, as is Curtis Samuel. Like, both guys I think are very worthwhile late-round targets as well. Give you a couple other people in this. Darnell Mooney, like, no one's really talking about Darnell Mooney. Like we've talked about, we expect the Falcons offense to be better. Cousins throwing more, obviously. London, Pitts, Bijan Robinson. But Darnell Mooney's going to be the #2 wide receiver in a dome on a pass-first offense under Zach Robinson. Again, Zach Robinson from the LA camp. They go 3 wide receivers a lot. Like, I think Darnell Mooney's going to be out there a lot more than people think. We've talked about the human Dortch, Greg Dortch. I think he's going to have a big year. Kyler Murray, of course, my ride or die. And Dortch's numbers with Murray, especially with Rondell Moore no longer there, and like they've sort of, it's a much narrower target tree to me in Arizona. So I really like Dortch, especially in PPR. Jalen McMillan is playing like every snap with the starters for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looks like he's locked down that #3 wide receiver role. It's obviously Evans and Godwin, but what do people that may not be familiar with Jalen McMillan not realize?
Well, he comes from this Washington offense where when they used him in the slot, he looked great. He needed to get stronger. He got a lot stronger from even his last year at college to his NFL training camp, which play strength was the #1 thing for me. This is a guy that I really like if Chris Godwin inevitably gets hurt again. Until then, I think the targets aren't going to be there for him. But if Godwin gets hurt and he's a guy that's been banged up before, it feels like McMillan is going to get a lot of work.
And then the last one, Andre Yosevich. Like, I know everyone's excited for Jermaine Burton, but like, Yosevich is there. He has the trust of Joe Burrow, and so like, you've got I think he's going to be their slot guy. Like, he's going to replace Tyler Boyd. It's going to be Higgins and Chase on the outside, and we're waiting. It's going to second half of the year maybe Jermaine Burton, but for right now, it's going to be Andre Yosevich, who has good hands and has the trust of Joe Burrow. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.